Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to our good friends, Sideline Interactive. We were the first school to have a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in Florida, and it was just fantastic. We use it for home games, use it for pep rallies. We also use it for signing ceremonies. Tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just fantastic. Go to sales@sidelineinteractive.com, shoot them an email, and see what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. You can also go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. Great product. Let them show you what they can do for your school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels in seconds. You don't need any extra equipment or any special training or any design experience. Okay, you can do it on any device. Go to Gipper.com and start creating world-class marketing content. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. And as an athletic director, we were a Huddle school. Our coaches just loved it. The cameras were easy to program. The analytics were fantastic. And the Huddle team was great to work with. Huddle's the complete performance platform. Between their online tools, their smart cameras, and their analytics, you can't go wrong. It's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high schools and colleges. And you're in pretty good company with over 6 million users. You want to find out more about how Huddle can help you and your program and how you can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank Snap Raise. Go to snapraise.com and find out how their better fundraising platform can help make you a better program. There's no upfront cost. Your data is secure. And most important, it works. Our coaches used SnapRaise and it was just fantastic. And you need to choose the best fundraiser for you and your group. And the SnapRaise digital difference will make all the difference for you. It's easy and effective. As I already said, it's safe and secure. And if you go to their website, snapraise.com, you can see the thousands and thousands of dollars that they have helped teams and schools raise over the years. Change your fundraising game plan and start a fundraiser that works for you. Go to snapraise.com and start raising funds today. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in registration. But Final Forms is more than that. They're a team, they're a technology, and they provide schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, and they have reminders for parents about policies and physicals and all the forms that come with athletics. Final Forms can also help with team communication and attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms helps with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. You know, it's time for you to talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and become a member of the Final Forms team. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Hometown Ticketing helps thousands of schools and organizations across the country seamlessly provide convenient digital ticketing options for their communities, their families, and their fans. To find out more about how Hometown Ticketing can help you and your programs, go to hometownticketing.com and talk to their professionals. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack can help you collect a tremendous amount of data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. It's quick, easy, and affordable, and it's information that you need to have. Most of the information is going to come back in a positive way. We used surveys for years, and 95% of them came back overwhelmingly positive. But they're also going to help identify that squeaky wheel parent that just needs to vent. And maybe they're going to help you identify a small problem that you can address before it turns into a big one. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. And we want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles and an entire library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Scott Paine. Scott's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's currently working for an organization called PT Solutions out of Marietta, Georgia. He's got a long resume, a lot of experience as an AD, but we're excited to have him on the show today. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Jake, hey, thanks for having me. Pleasure. I longtime listener, first time on the show. So I'm excited to, I think I started listening to you back in, you did it summer 2020, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I started listening to you probably almost episode 1. So happy to be on here. I can't wait to share some tools that I've learned as a younger side of the AD.
And we haven't scared you off after all those episodes. So
hey, not yet.
appreciate you staying with us.
Absolutely.
Well, as you know, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up in college, and then we'll take a break after that and then come back and hear more about your career. But give us that Scott Paine story.
Absolutely. Born and raised out of Washington State, eastern side, small town, Wenatchee, Washington.
Oh, yeah.
So we're sitting right in the middle of the state. It's 3 hours to Spokane if you are a Gonzaga University fan. And it's 3 hours to Seattle, which is on the other side of the Cascades. Grew up kind of just doing all sorts of sports. So you name it. My main one was golf. Golf was my big one. Went to Wenatchee High School, went through public education there, and then went on to University of Washington. Ended up going through science majors. I came out with biology, a lot of minors too in chemistry and just random science stuff. Out of college, didn't really know what I wanted to fully do. Got into some miscellaneous things. You can find that on my LinkedIn. I have some really random experiences at the very bottom of that experience section. And ended up coming back to Wenatchee and got into coaching. I ended up becoming the high school head golf coach. And then in that, I was working in one of the middle schools kind of as like the in-house suspension room guy.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of took on doing a lot of like admin-esque tasks. That came with we had a new athletic director for the district. His name is Jim Beeson, one of my best mentors, one of my best friends. And he kind of got me into wanting to do more AD stuff. And I got into doing middle school level. From there, I was like, well, I kind of want to do this, what you do, and how do I get into that? I kind of ended up coaching everything in the middle school ranks. If you've ever been an AD in the middle school realm, you kind of end up putting on many hats. So you name it: football, basketball, cross country. I did flag football. I mean, you kind of coached every bit of it, but I also did all the organization for the league and whatnot that we played in. And we had a robust, pretty good middle school league in Central Washington that we were a part of. We looked for master's programs that I hadn't really got committed. I was a substitute teacher, but I hadn't really decided if I wanted to go into being a teacher or whatnot. So I ended up doing the master's program for Ohio University. I think you've had Aaron Wright and company on already, but I went through, at the time it would have been Scott Smith was the program director. So I did Scott Smith, and then Aaron was there as well, Al Sursland. Went through that as the MAA. At the same time, I also did Ohio University also had like you could do an MBA, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted some business aspects too. So I did two at once, kind of. They kind of tied my tuition together. They were separate totally from each other. It's not the same as the MSA that they do. I think that Kelly oversees now, and the MBA. But it came out with my MAA and then my MBA. And then right out of the gate, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. I had some connections that had district level openings in the state of Washington for an AD, that Jim and some other individuals that I've worked with as a coach networked me into. I interviewed, and I ended up going straight from middle school athletics coaching to district level athletic director probably within months. So, and that's, I went through, so my first one was Sunnyside, Washington. It was where you go up to 4A in Washington State. So they were a 4A high school league. So I got to stay in the same league that my alma mater, high school, Wenatchee, was in. And then the same guys that all my middle school programs were in Wenatchee, they were the district ADs at those same schools. So I actually stayed with the same group of ADs for multiple years, from being mentored by them to then sitting at the table with them. I did that at Sunnyside for a couple of years. I ended up getting, my wife is not from Washington. She was from California. And so we kind of moved around for my AD job for that right out of the gate. And then she ended up, we were like, we kind of want to go closer to where our friends were at. We moved away from them in Wenatchee. There's a school district that kind of was willing to kind of poach me away. And I went up and did that through COVID. So I was at Sunnyside for COVID and prior to that. And then I went up to a lake town called Chelan and did the same thing there as a district at AD. And then ended up, we sat there being like, we wanted to be closer to family. I don't have any siblings, and my wife ended up having, her sister lives in Marietta, Georgia. And so unfortunately at the time, there was no, this past year, there was no main openings for ADs, and Georgia's requirements are a little different than Washington. So ended up finding the job that I currently do now for PT Solutions. And I just oversee the business development side of their sports medicine branch, their vertical there. And so we do sports medicine services to mainly K through 12 schools across the nation, but collegiate settings and semi-pro and pro organizations.
As I say this frequently, but it's true. I just love listening to the stories.
Yeah.
And, again, the connections. I'm going to guess you might recall, I grew up in that Washington area, battleground high school, and bounced around the Northwest a while.
Yeah.
So,
we now host, they now host the cheerleading championships for the state of Washington at Battleground.
Well, what I get back there maybe every couple of years. And when I was going to school there, it was just one high school. It was Battleground High School. And then when I was in college, they added a second high school to the district. Now I think there's like 7 or 8 high schools.
It's big in that area.
Yeah, it's really blown up in a lot of different ways. That's all good. But for our listeners, our guest today is Scott Paine. He's a certified master athletic administrator. As you've heard, he's got quite a bit of experience as an AD, but he's not doing that right now. We're going to find out more about his new job with PT Solutions. But let's take a quick break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank the good folks at Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com and find out how athletic directors, coaches, and schools are creating world-class, custom branded content for their school social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device and without needing any design experience. As I like to say, it's so easy, even I can do it. We use Gipper to announce the release of our podcasts, and my virtual backdrop is a Gipper template. Once again, go to Gipper.com and start creating world-class content for your school's social media channels. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting with Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about his current job with PT Solutions. But Scott, I want to go back to those early days. You started out, you were coaching a dozen sports, that typical middle school experience. I remember it well, but let's talk a little bit about that move to the other side of the desk. What was it like? What were some of the exciting things? What were some of the challenges you experienced in becoming an AD for the first time?
Yeah, I think right off the bat, doing middle school athletics, you kind of had my hands wet in like the smaller aspects of what you would do as a district level or a high school AD. I think a lot of it came when I went through the master's program with Ohio University. You got all these like really tangible tools, and you had to be networked with somebody. They highly wanted you to be networked. So Jim Beeson, Wenatchee's district AD, still current AD there. He just gave me all the opportunity. I wasn't married, no kids. So, young and dumb, I just, if I could do a high school Friday night game and be the supervisor, done. Like, just the best way to do it is to do it. So I wanted to learn it that way. And he would either, be there, or there's sometimes he had to go away and I just got to do it. Don't get me wrong. I made a ton of rookie mistakes, not, being paid to do that job per se. Right. And not know all of it. And Jim was great, giving me some pretty good scaffolding for it. But taking those experiences, being able to network with Jim all the time, when I got the AD, the district AD job, first off, super excited, younger guy being like, okay, well, they're going to give me a chance for this. I must have interviewed very well, because obviously I didn't have any true experience at that level. And so I had really good references, again, not what you know, who you know. And it's just day one. I think the best part that worked really well for me was just, I just went into it knowing I needed to listen. You can't be the young guy in the room when you have, I had coaches that were twice my age. I had coaches that were brand new that coached sports that I didn't coach. And so it's just being able to listen and know a lot more from the individuals that have been there. The gentleman I was replacing was, had been there for 20 years. So, there's a lot of things that hadn't changed. And so there's a lot of excitement because there's things that we could do that I had the energy to go do, that you might not have once you're 20, 30 years down the line, of wanting to change or try to go with. So, challenges though, obviously learning in a brand new community. That's always fun. You find out the folks that are in probably your bottom 5% of energy that you're not going to want to see every day. And, unfortunately you have to give 90% to the bottom 5. So, that was a challenge, a lot of challenges in regards to just processes. I'm very organized. So, learning things that maybe weren't to the level I would expect them to be at, was, hey, I would like to look into this. How can we, work as a team to make this better or more efficient? Or people just always, how it goes, the door's always open. So people will always come in and give you hey, you got a minute? Yeah. Hey, do I have 20? I don't know, but I have 2. And you talk about those. So a lot of fun, excitement. It was a lot of fun. I loved what I did. I love kids. And I think at the bare essence of it, it was just so much fun. Either connecting with kids, and you can probably talk to it too, Jake. The hard ones, the ones that were always on my academic and eligibility list, the ones that were, going through the disciplines chain with me, like those are the ones that I remember the most, just because I probably spent the most time with them. Yeah, I might have been at events that I could have been spending, 5, 10 hours a week at, but I really only knew certain kids really well, especially when you're at schools that are 2,600 kids. So, yeah, a good listening ear was what probably was my best takeaway the first year and the second year. And then finally you kind of get some momentum going because you have to gain trust and respect, and you're not going to get that day one, especially when you're, 24 years old, 25 years old, trying to tell someone that's been there long.
You mentioned listening, and I've said this many times. It's probably the number one tool that I would recommend. And it's, a tool that I wish I would have been smart enough to start using at a much younger age. It sounds like you did that, right out of the chute. And the other thing that I thought was very important, you took advantage of those opportunities. You were available. You got the experience as the game supervisor, and throughout that, you were making those contacts, those network connections that, as you alluded to, they help get you that job. So none of that happens if you're not willing to say, yeah, I'll stay and supervise the game. And so, ADs out there, look for people like that. And for people like that are listening, go to your AD and say, hey, do you need some help? Because they're always looking to develop that next person in the chain. Okay, great stuff.
Well, and even being a younger AD too, when I did go to each of those other school districts, I even had individuals my age that were like, hey, what can I do? And I sat there being like, well, isn't this full circle? Like, absolutely. Like, what can I, what do you want to do? And how can you help me? And likewise, how can I help you? And I still network with those individuals today who they went on and got a master's in athletic administration, and they want to go do that somewhere too as full-time job. So
it's all about giving back. Great stuff.
Yeah.
For our listeners, our guest is Scott Paine. He's a certified master athletic administrator, We're going to take another quick break, hear from our sponsors, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles and an extensive library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. You can also email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Scott Paine from PT Solutions. Scott, we always let our guests give a shout out to their mentors. None of us got here on our own, so it's nice to say thank you. So who are some of the folks that helped you along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I know I already kind of alluded to one already. Right off the bat, I think I would just give a shout out to the Big Nine Athletic Conference ADs in Central Washington. They all of them were huge for me. Sitting around the table, being able to pick their brains. I was the youngest one at the table with them by a good 25 years. So they were all very well versed in athletics, from Jeff Jameson to Jim Beeson, who is my direct mentor, and Russ Waterman. He was in the same town as Jim across the river, and Russ does Eastmont High School, and Jim does Wenatchee High School. And those two probably gave me the most mentorship. And if I owe anyone anything, it's to those two gentlemen. They gave me a lot of the tools that I have today. They gave me a lot of the insight or things that they would have done differently that I had the chance to do differently. And so those two, I would also, the MAA staff at Ohio University, Aaron Wright's phenomenal. I still am in contact with him. I see him at the national conferences. Al Sursland's always a good one to still reach out to. And then Scott Smith was our program director at the time, and he just was always available. So they were always fun to network with. They were always fun mentors. And that's on the professional side. But I also just worked for really good principals and superintendents. I never had a bad administration above me, and they taught me a lot too, because obviously they're way more veteran than myself. But they were always very open to my ideas, and they were always very open to just making sure I had the tools I needed to do the job well, or to find whoever I needed to talk to do the job well. So my first superintendent, Kevin McKay, was phenomenal. My first principal, Ryan Maxwell, as an AD, he was phenomenal. And then when I went up to Chelan, Barry DePauli was my superintendent. He was awesome. And then Brad Wilson, who he now replaced Barry as the superintendent, was my principal. And they always gave me really good support. And I think that's not always the case in every school district. As an AD, you're usually on an island. No one else in the district does your job. And it was a lot of fun to have all of them as mentors that I could look back now and say that they definitely had an impact on how I do it now.
Yeah, I always love to, hear the mentors as well. I've been doing this for a long time, but it's great to recognize some of those names. So, you mentioned some pretty high-powered people there. Very cool. And in the last segment, you alluded to yourself, mentoring that next generation of aspiring athletic directors. Appreciate you doing that. Our guest again is Scott Paine. He's a certified master athletic administrator, and he works with PT Solutions. We're going to find out exactly what that is and why you should be interested. But let's take another break and hear from our sponsors. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing, the trusted leader in digital ticketing and the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Hometown Ticketing helps thousands of schools and organizations across the country seamlessly provide convenient digital ticketing options for their communities, their families, and their fans. To find out about how Hometown Ticketing can help you and your program, go to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Scott, before we hear about PT Solutions, let's talk a little bit, or I'm going to let you talk about your journey with the NIAAA. I got involved with my state association and NIAAA very late in my career. And, obviously, you're on the other end of it. How did that happen? How did you become aware of the program, and kind of take us through your journey?
Yeah, so when I initially was doing middle school athletics, I've always been a lifelong learner. I like to learn. I like school. Obviously, I didn't want to just pick majors or pick degrees and go with it. So I had been looking into how do I learn more about being an AD. Saw the NIAAA. Jim Beeson, again, my mentor and AD at Wenatchee. He was he said like he is at the end of his career too. And so he was like, I don't really do a lot of these, but this would be something that you could look into, and pointing me towards the LTI classes. Obviously, when I went into the MAA program at Ohio University, that's where that program aligns with the NIAAA LTI content. So you come out of that, and if you had any experience, you almost could sit for the CAA right out of the bat. So when you finish the 2 years with them, you had all these classes. I think it's like 10, 11 or 12 classes that you came out, or LTIs that you came out with. I'd already taken a couple others that weren't on that list. And so you get the RA when you're doing the program. And then when you come out, you could do CAA. So with the WIAA, so Washington's Athletic Administrators Association, or WASA is what we call it. But for Washington's Athletic Director Association, I started getting involved with taking the classes through our state conference. And then I took the CAA exam through our state conference and started learning how to do, get into doing breakout sessions. Again, I'm really into the tech and how to leverage either companies like the ones that sponsor your show, your podcast, or how to do some of your own streamlining with free apps that are available. And so even getting the talk with some side like best practices or like some tech tips. I did a lot of tech tips for ADs on how to make it more streamlined with breakout sessions at the WASA conference. From there, I ended up again, knowledge is power. So I just started taking every LTI because it was so applicable. So if I get anything right now, I should be shouting out to the NIAAA for their LTI certs. But I wanted to go through and get to, I kind of like the game mentality. I wanted to achieve the top one, and I needed more classes. I needed more time as an AD. I needed more of these different things. And you get the the PDF form that walks you through. Here's what you need for all these things. And I ended up doing my CMAA. I got all the classes done for it, as well as I still take them, even though I'm not current practitioner, right, as an AD. My CMAA project, I started in Sunnyside, knowing I wanted to get to it. And by the end of it, it was probably, it was mainly, I learned everything about grass and field maintenance. We didn't have a good system in place all the time with mowing and grass heights and when to water and when to, do certain things. And how do you transition a field? We didn't have turf at the time. They now have a turf field there. But how do you seasonally go around the clock with baseball, softball fields, dragging them? What does it look like? Type of dirt, type of sand, covers the whole 9 yards. And I did it for every one of our facilities. It probably came out to be 115, 120 pages is how long my CMAA is. When I went to Chelan, I finished it because when I went there, it was not good. And so we ended up redoing all of, checklists and schedules and maintenance checking on just all of our venues. And that's what my CMAA project was. It was mainly just how do you schedule and maintain all of your fields. And then that one even branched into your venues too, indoor venues. So gyms and whatnot. It's a great read if you got if you got a good afternoon to sit through, and it's not quite like your books, Jake. But there's pretty good checklists at the end. If you want Spark Notes, you just go to the end and you just print those out, and they came up with calendars and just, when the field's used by youth programs and when they're not, this is a good time to, maintain or cut back. And now with the NIAAA, like post the CMA work, I still take classes. I'm working on trying to get on with, Todd Schuler. Right. He does the tech productivity courses, LTI 610, 613, 614. I've been networking with him too. And I think I get to this upcoming December. I think I get to join the teaching cohort for those courses and helping with the curriculum there. And then I still write for the NIAAA magazine. So every once in a while I get an article through that talks about either like hiring coaches, or I had one on leadership development that was really brought on. We brought in Brian Kane a couple times at my schools, and he just really kicked me into wanting to be better. So I ended up writing an article there To lead is to serve first. That was in one of the articles. I have another one about hiring, like how to hire for your culture, your school. So I still am very active. I go to the national convention every year. It's probably one of the best ones you get to go to. And I get to go to a lot of the state ones now in this role. But it's fun to go to the National AD Conference. It's a good time, a lot of fun people, and ADs are we're a fun profession.
Well, again, everything you shared was just perfect. Talking about, the Ohio program and how if you're looking at a master's program, there's a lot of them out there and they're all good in their own way, but make sure you're going to one that has that NIAAA affiliation so that when you graduate, like you not only have your master's, but you're prepared to and qualified and able to sit for the CAA exam, and don't have to go back and take those extra courses. And then I love your project, something that you had a passion for, something that was immediately applicable in your situation. And talking about books, I can tell you how to, get that book published. If I can do it 2 times, you can certainly do it with a quality document like that. And then again, going to the conference, we'll have to make some plans to connect in Nashville.
Absolutely.
So, for our listeners, our guest is Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, budding author. And when we come back, I'm going to let him share what he's doing right now with PT Solutions. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Final Forms is the leader in registration and forms, but they're more than that. Final Forms is a team. It's technology. And they provide schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with mobile accessibility, and they have reminders for parents about policies and physicals and all the forms that come with athletics. Final Forms can also help with team communication and attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. It's time for you to talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started on the Final Forms team. All right, we're back with Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. You've heard Scott share his story, moving from, the great state of Washington as an athletic director, as a coach, and now he's in Georgia working for a company called PT Solutions. I'm going to let Scott tell you what PT Solutions is, and more importantly, why you as an athletic director should be interested. So, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Again, I missed the athletic director trench a lot. So finding this job opportunity for my family was a blessing. What we do, so PT Solutions at large is the bread and butter of them is a physical therapy company. So in your communities, you probably see the red and gold or the blue and gold, and it's PT Solutions Physical Therapy. Within our company, and there's other companies like us, we have other verticals. So you can talk about speech language pathology. You can talk about OT, occupational therapy. And then there's us, there's the sports medicine branch. And so I get the privilege to still serve and network and communicate with athletic directors. And that is, I think, why I got brought in, let's just be honest, which is networking and being in the community of ADs. But what we do is sports medicine services. So, I was in 2 districts that did not have sports medicine. We didn't have athletic trainers, large high schools that needed the medical care on the sideline. And it's not the same. I know Friday Night Lights, no one wants to just have the ambulance sitting on the side and that's your concussion protocol. That's not fun. In some states, it's not. You have to have the ambulance, but you also have to have a certified concussion professional on the sideline. Usually that's an MD. ATs do that for you, as well as in-house sports medicine. Jake, I don't know, did you guys have sports medicine at the schools you worked at?
We were very fortunate. The last 2 schools that I was the AD at, we had full-time athletic trainers, but we were also private schools, and it was a priority for our administration to have that.
Did you all do those in-house? Were they a part of you hired them yourselves and all that?
Yes. A previous school going back, wow, over 20 years, we worked with a county consortium
Wow.
program that, they provided and placed. We'd certainly interview and talk to them. But no, the last two schools that I was at, we advertised, we hired, we paid. And again, they were full-time. They didn't teach, they didn't coach. They were athletic trainers. And then they liaisoned with the local sports medicine communities, physical therapists, orthopedic surgeons, et cetera. So we were in a very, very good place.
So that what you're speaking to right there, there's the two models. There's what we do where you can partner with us as an athletic director. And I would have done this in a heartbeat in my communities if it was an option, because recruiting to where I was at, where Central Washington is pretty rural. So it's just finding someone that wants to come be an AT in that area is hard. And then our job would have been the job that I had at Sunnyside that we were trying to open up would have been an in-house AT. We hire, we train, but they also would have taught sports medicine classes to students to have a student curriculum going on. So, the CTE continuing education line, that individual would have had my hours. And so like you had to find a perfect person that wanted to be there in the morning to teach and then to stay with you until game supervision or practices ended that night, 5-6 days a week. So that's one model you look at. What we do is we partner with the school or the school district, and we either split the cost with you for hiring an individual, and that the AT is there with your school, building relationships with your coaches and teams full time. Our model is we have to have a clinic kind of in your area or an area where we could put a clinic, because it's a continuum of care. We bring a care team. The AT is with you full time at your school, treating your student population, your teachers, your community. That's the whole purpose of what we do. And then obviously they refer back to our clinic that's there. And then if you have a team MD or whatnot, that team MD would be a part of the clinical care as well. And then like anywhere in our country, right, you have the freedom to choose. The referral goes one way, but the family can totally choose if they have a different MD that they like to go to, or family physician, or a different PT that they like to go to, they can go there as well. But that's kind of the continuum of care. We come with our clinical side. The AT is there full time for you. And then we have a whole organizational leadership branch for athletic trainers across the country. So whether that's a regional manager, and then if we have more ATs in your area, we elevate them so they have a way to go up in the ranks to either manage their own team of ATs, or to go into more administration role with regional and oversee multiple states. And then we just are, as a practice, we're growing across the country. So again, there's other companies that do the same thing that we do. We bring a culture and a management fee that a management structure that I actually really enjoy. So as an AD, like I wouldn't be sitting here talking about it, and I wouldn't have accepted the job if I didn't like the service part of it, of what we do. And then on the flip side, I'm at a lot of state conferences and the national one. So happy to always talk about how we could help it. But I definitely know I didn't have the medical care that my kids deserved. And just getting to hang out with any of the ATs in Georgia or Florida that I can go see right off the bat, I wish I would have had it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, most schools, I would say, are probably need your services. They're not like the two private schools that I was at. I still remember the day, as a coach, you were the athletic trainer. You were that
Yeah.
first responder, and I know athletic trainers have become much more prevalent now, as they should
Yes.
be. So let me get this straight. You do have, and these are my words, that national network. So that athletic director out in rural, you name it, Nebraska, Iowa, Maine, they can reach out to PT Solutions, hopefully find or help network to find an athletic trainer in their area, correct?
Again, we have to be able to have a clinic in your area, but that does not mean that if there's not one where you're at, you can go to our website, find a location. We're in 25 states. We're going into the upper 30s here soon. So we're making our way across. We're on both coasts and making our way through middle America at this point. And as long as there's a chance that we could put a clinic in your area, we might not have one there, but we're always happy to vet out opportunities for that.
Okay. Well,
But if you're an AD anywhere around one of our clinics, you would automatically be in the conversation for us to get going sooner than later.
All right. Well, let's go and do that. We'll do this again at the end of the podcast, but
Yeah.
one of our listeners wants to reach out, find out if they are in your area, or just to
Yeah.
pick your brain a little bit.
Oh,
How do
yeah.
they get a hold of you and the organization?
Yeah. I mean, easy on my end. You can go to our website. It's ptsolutions.com. We have a drop down menu that you can go to athletic sport organizations, and you can fill out a form. My personal email is probably the easiest. My LinkedIn is also very easy to find, as well as I'm on Twitter at Coach Payne. You can DM me there too. But my personal email is my last name, Payne, Paine, period, Scott, Scott @gmail.com. And from there I can easily help you out.
All right. So that was payne.scott@gmail.com and then ptsolutions.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Reach out, check this organization out, folks. And if you don't have a trainer, it sounds like a really cool opportunity to hopefully get one at your school. Our guest is Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, and with PT Solutions. We're going to take another quick break, big surprise, but we'll be right back. Please stay with us on the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help the performance of their teams using video and analytics. Huddle's a complete performance platform. They've got online tools, they have smart cameras, they've always had analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle's built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high schools and colleges, and even the pros use Huddle to help their athletes perform at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes and the coaches of the college teams you're trying to get to recruit them. If you want to find out more about how Huddle can help you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Scott, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. You've been the AD at a number of schools. You've traveled all over the country. What are some best practices that you have seen, maybe even things that you've initiated at your schools that you feel you'd like to share with our listeners? Do you have any best practices?
Yeah, there's some that I experienced firsthand when I went to Sunnyside in Washington. Their school culture was probably second to none that I've seen. The students were very bought in. It's a very rural community, and diverse too. Great Hispanic culture. It's fun, but the culture of the school, like you step foot on it, you could see that everyone was bought into. They have core values that were already built out and whatnot, and so it was fun to see some of their traditions that just blew your socks off. One of them they did was it was a moving up assembly. And I know this isn't like new to some schools, but like a moving up assembly was just so powerful because the way that they did it. When I first saw it, I was like, this is awesome. Like you would ride for the brand so fast the minute you saw this moving up assembly. But you would put in our gym, our main gym at the high school, you could put a couple thousand people in this sucker. And so you put every class around, and then the seniors are on the floor. And the incoming ninth graders are in an auditorium down the hall, getting the whole talk of this is your next step. You're now moving on to this new experience, this new life stage. You're not middle school anymore. You're moving into the high school. And they had a whole leadership talk going on while we're doing this other presentation in the gym with the seniors. And you go through, who's serving in the military after, high school, who's going to college after high school, who's playing a sport at any level after high school, and honoring these individuals, and then doing some other honors and awards. And then the moving up happens, and you say goodbye to the seniors, and they leave the gym, all 580 of them, and in comes the ninth grade class, and every single class moves around the gym. So you go from the freshmen that are already there to they're now the sophomores, and sophomores to juniors, and the juniors now come onto the floor and sit at the seat of the seniors, and the freshmen all pile into this gym that they've kind of probably seen a couple times in the district, but like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. And this is, we got we have indoor sparklers going and there's smoke coming down and, everyone's going bonkers and the cheer team's doing one thing and there's a band playing in the back. And like, there's probably 4,500 bodies in this sucker, 5,000 bodies in this thing, just past the fire code. And it is the coolest experience because you just made a moment for the seniors moving, the new seniors coming in, and then the freshmen that are brand new to the building before you even go to summer break. And then we did the same kind of thing to kick off the school year, igniting that freshman class again to understand these are your core values that you will live by. This is what we're about. This is what it means to be a Grizzly. And then we did that from the academic side through the athletic side. And as an AD, right, if you have healthy athletic programs, I'm not saying like you're winning state championships, but healthy athletic programs, kids that are on, academic ineligibility, they're not getting in trouble. We have a lot of high participation rates. That 100% feeds right back to your academic setting, and teachers are having better relationships with kids. The grades are better. The school climate's better. We had that ecosystem, and it was very well worked. That's probably my best one to see. It was one of those things that you saw that you're like, this is so cool. I can't believe I get to be a part of it. How can I help make it even better? And that was the fun part. The other one that comes to mind, the dreaded homecoming week when we all are on like overtime hours and then some, the homecoming football game and all that. We did a really cool version of, powder puff football. We used it as a fundraiser at Sunnyside, and you would pack our varsity football field with community members. We did a huge cookout. There was a parade that we did before it at night and kicked off at 6. And it was the junior girls versus the senior girls, organized teams, flag football status, announcer, music, full game, full meal deal. And we would pack our stadium with ticket sales and everything for people to come do this traditional just powder puff game. And it was just wild to me that I was just like, I had never seen that. And when actually we didn't do it that well, it was just this like, oh, powder puffs happening at night, come out and have fun. And this was like, way more organized, 22-page like manual of here's the SOPs, like all this, but it was the parade leading up to it through the downtown area where people would come out and watch. And then that whole crowd would just come through the gate to go watch for 2 hours, flag football. And for us at the time, flag football wasn't a thing. So this powder puff was a fun, it was a fun community event for something that you didn't really think was going to be a community-based event. So.
Now, talking about flag football, we've done that at a number of schools, and for me, ours, equal parts fun and equal parts, guys, I just hope nobody gets hurt, and
Amen.
very, very competitive, sometimes maybe too competitive. But your first example, the promotion ceremony and the welcoming of the new freshmen, coaches and principals and ADs, they talk all the time about trying to build a culture. That's it right there, where everything, the school is connected. It's not a basketball team culture. It's not a baseball team culture. It's the school culture. When you've got that going for you, you're absolutely right. That definitely leads to, more victories on the field and court. Great stuff. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
For listeners, our guest today is Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. He's a longtime AD, but now he works with PT Solutions. You need to check it out. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Raise. Go to snapraise.com and find out how better fundraising can make a better program. Get away from the fundraising headaches of the past. With snapraise.com, there's no upfront cost. Your data is secure. You can track the donations, and best of all, it works. Choosing the best fundraiser for you and your group is critical, and the SnapRaise digital fundraising difference includes success. Our coaches have used snapraise.com, and it's just tremendous. Go to snapraise.com's website and see the testimonials from schools that they have helped raise thousands of dollars. So go to snapraise.com and change your fundraising game plan with a fundraiser that works for you. That's snapraise.com. Welcome back, everyone. Again, our guest is Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. Scott, 100 years ago when I was in high school, our coaches would say things like, come on, you got to be tough, or come on, Jake, you got to suck it up. And we kind of knew what they meant, and we would do it. In the many years since then, we have figured out much better ways to communicate to our student athletes. But at the same time, I think toughness is still a valuable part of the athletic experience and for life. So here's my question. How can we help kids develop toughness while also being sensitive to the very real social emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid experiences that I never had to go through? Do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I mean, I was a younger coach, so a lot of my seniors and I we're not too far off in terms of a decade of age experience. And one of the things that I learned pretty quickly, in order to have them learn, quote unquote toughness, no matter what, I'm talking more so my seniors in high school for the golf team I coached, but you can even get down into the middle school sports. I kind of could dwindle some of it down to, was how do you get the respect from them? And, in order to get respect, you have to, it takes time and trust. So whether that's showing up and caring about them and how do you care for somebody, but in order for me to love you tough, for you to learn toughness, I have to be able to honestly show you the love side of it. And that don't take that wrong. It's just I have to show that I care about you. Well, if I have 50 kids on a, 8th grade football team or whatever, that's a lot of kids to actually invest in. Well, you kind of have to invest in order for them to even take what you want as tough. I saw that the best when you could find ways to connect with them, either via grades or being, approachable at school and at lunch breaks. And I took time at lunch all the time to sit next to kids, and no matter who you were, whether you're on my good side or my bad side, and try to develop a trusting relationship so that you could easily get them to buy in with you. And it took time, and it wasn't immediate, and you could have those tougher conversations. You could make them tougher where you easily could get a kid that is facing adversity to learn you're going to face this more than just now, and have that life lesson conversation with them, but them actually be going through an adverse situation. Maybe they got caught cheating or something along those lines, or something along whether got ejected from a game. And as an AD, I had those conversations a lot, and to build those relationships, I actually had to hope that the coach that I had in place had already built a relationship with the kid. And my first AD gig, my head football coach was one of the best people at intentionally caring for each one of his kids, all 106 of them. And he could tell you fun facts about their family. He could tell you about what they like to do, what motivated them. And he could go have those conversations that in making tough kids, where you could have an adverse situation happen. You could make a bonehead decision. Let's be honest, that happens. And he could be one that could easily give you a second chance, but in that moment, teach you how to be tough about it. And that also opened the door when I went from being a coach myself to being just the AD. You could have that conversation as an administrator, and he could pave that way for you because he literally took the time to build the trust so he could love his kids tough. And I mean, they would run through a brick wall for him. And if they did anything wrong, they would learn that they had to go be tough to overcome what they did wrong and to have a second chance and to go do it right. So kind of what I got going as a coach when I was learning how to connect with kids, to really teach them those softer skills that nowadays, adversity hits and then it's well, I can just go that way, instead of being no, adversity hits, I'm going to hit that pitfall and I'm going to come back out of it. How it paved the way for me to be able to have those conversations. And then I got to see it from some really good head coaches that knew how to build the trust and have those loving, tough conversations to build up their kids to be able to handle adversity.
Yeah, you really hit on, I think, two key things. Is number one, it's building those relationships with the kids, at some point. And when you have that relationship, the kids are going to do just about anything you ask them, because there is that relationship. And the other part of that you did very well was the communication aspect, is, defining, okay, well, this is what we mean, this is what we want you to do. And then instructionally, when this happens, this is what you do. So yeah, very good stuff. Okay. One more time, our guest today is Scott Paine. He's a certified master athletic administrator, currently with PT Solutions out of Marietta, Georgia. It's ptsolutions.com for more information. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back with some more wisdom. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to sidelineinteractive.com. Their indoor scoring tables and video boards not only raise money for your department, but also create the ultimate game day experience in your gym. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. See exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. Scott, you were sharing with me during the break, one of your passions is leadership. So, what are some things that you've done, or what are some things you're excited about in this area?
Yeah, I mean, right, when you get into the AD realm, you get to be a coach of coaches, and how do you inspire coaches to inspire kids and their own coaching cohorts? I mean, obviously, when you get into some of the larger high schools in the country, you could have a head coach that also has a couple, 10 or more assistant coaches underneath them, and how do they provide those tools? And a lot of times, like, we loved just cohorts at both of my schools. We brought in Brian Kane. That's probably a name a lot of people have heard, but more so, like, after you go through all the online learning stuff that we went through in COVID, and like being able to have more accessibility, like what you and I are doing right now via Zoom, right? You can bring in some of these speakers that you probably have seen through Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, and you're like, I don't know if I could bring them in person. They're, the fee is probably not always pretty, but a lot of times now they do come in on Zooms and can get in with you and give you the same resources and tools that allow you to take in parts of it for you to lead your own athletic department. So like Brian Kane, there's the MVP process and whatnot. You can apply that to your, he gives you templates and stories and all the, the 10 success pillars. And it's fun to talk about, like, what kind of vision can you do for your own athletic department? But then also the coaches take that and they take all these notes because they want to get better too. And they make that into curriculum for themselves to either do as a coach, or they make it for their captains. And so, like, from those leadership trainings, whether we read books, book studies as head coaches and myself, or the Brian Kanes of the world, or other motivational speakers that have just a really good leadership hold on the foundation of what you need to build up that leadership, we sprawled that into captains councils, leadership training for captains. So like if there's kids that have an inkling to learn that, and cross that into some of our leadership classes taught in school, you could then bridge these leadership development tools where we're getting them on the athletic side. Well, we can share them academically. And you could get those kids coming in a class and see those kids learn these leadership tools that they could either take back to their teams or even just take back to their own family units. It's pretty darn, for one, empowering, but also just fun, because I think all of us, no matter if you get it, title and position is one way of having influence, but it's not always title and position. And so if you're a coach, like, you automatically, whether you're a volunteer coach, an assistant coach, whatnot, you're already in a leadership role, whether you want to be pinned as a leader or not. And those kids are going to look at you. Kids, same way. They don't have to have title and position as a captain, but they could totally go take some of these courses or learn some of these leadership tools that could just add to their team's leadership qualities. And you could see that come out in sportsmanship initiatives and just ways that kids started leading schools. So very passionate about leadership. There's a lot of things I would happy to network with people on, of how to bring in individuals, or just different books that we did and how we did those book studies, because obviously not everyone has a lot of time to sit down and read books all the time. And to get all your head coaches in a room at one time is not always, obviously going to happen. So they come from all different walks of life.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. A long time ago, my CMAA project was on developing a student leadership team at our school. And we ended up doing a book study. We involved our coaches. We actually brought the author in. Again, we had some resources to do that.
Sweet.
So, Scott, this has been really cool getting to know you a little bit, making that connection that goes all the way back to Washington State. But we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with the athletic directors toolbox. We've already established that you're an experienced AD, but when we come back from the break, I'm going to ask you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. And I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So let's take a break. Let's hear from Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack that sponsor the toolbox segment. And then we're going to find out what Scott Paine is going to put in his athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the athletic director toolbox segment. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. We use surveys at my schools for just about everything: teachers, coaches, parents, and kids. And the information that came back was almost always over the top positive. But at the same time, it allowed that squeaky wheel parent to vent and sometimes even share something that it might be a little problem now, but if you don't know about it because of the survey, it could turn into a big problem later on. So surveys are tremendous. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started at your school. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your players, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, welcome back, everyone. It's that time where we challenge the experienced, the master athletic administrator, Scott Paine, to send out a brand new AD, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in their toolbox. Scott, what 3 items are going to go in your athletic director toolbox?
First one, this is probably more conceptual, but some tools that come with it. Organization. You have to be highly organized. One of the best ones for me in my office, I had this big old whiteboard, and it had 6 months on it, and it was a magnetized board. So I had magnets for everything. And I had 2 secretaries that helped do a lot of our scheduling and whatnot. But like as a coach, that organizational tool, you could walk in my office and you didn't really have to ask me a question. You could just look at the board and figure out like where trips were, or if they wanted to reschedule something. That never happens, right? Like you never have to reschedule something because, something didn't fall in line with kids being off on a vacation or something. They could come in and just look at the board and be like, okay, like we have an opening here. Oh, the gym's available there. And we had that out for 6 months. So organization, that's just one example of it. But I mean, just organizing anything that you can do that is printable, that's easy to hand to someone if you're gone. It's easy to just find for a secretary in a shared like Google Drive or a OneDrive that you can just, hey, this is the resource, here you go. And so it takes time, but organization is by far, if you're not an organized individual, Godspeed as an AD. But I think the ones that I've seen that have been most successful, you are highly organized with documentation and just processes and being able to find resources quick. The second one, people make your organization go round. If you want, athletic departments are an organization, you have to run them as such. And the way you treat people matters. So obviously I was really close to our event custodians and our field maintenance crews, because they're the ones that prep and clean up all of your facilities and your venues and your events. But in that same breath, also it's just your event workers. Do you have people that just love serving your events? Well, you better treat them phenomenally well, because they're the ones that take your tickets. They're your announcers. They're your last minute phone dials because so-and-so didn't show up. And then with those people, who's the backup to those people? So back to organization, I had a list on a list on a list of, hey, here's who, wants to do this. Here's who signed up to do this. Here's someone that would be in the wings. Because if I wasn't there one night or something, I wanted someone to be able to dial a phone number and be like, hey, will so-and-so fill in for this role? I mean, we've all been there when you had like volunteer chain crews for 9th grade football, and you're sitting there and the officials are sitting there and they're like, hey, Payne, where's, you need one more. And you're like, hold on, like, let me see who wants pizza at halftime, because I'm going to have to try to figure out my third. So I think that one is twofold. Treat your people very well. Coaches, whoever works in your organization in the athletic department, treat them well. I think I walked around with bottles of water and pop and pizza for all my event crew, more so than anything else. I had a backpack of just food and snacks. Like, hey, are you hungry? Here you go. Hey, are you thirsty? Here you go. Because it mattered, because those individuals made our events happen. And if they did a really good job and they were taken care of, they made the event even more memorable for the kids and the families that came. So treat your people well, and then also know who your people are that want to serve at certain events. And I hardly ever told someone no that wanted to help out. So unless there was an alternative motive that you learn later, but you never learn that up front. So that one for sure. And then the third one that I'm very passionate about is you have to leverage technology to streamline your processes. As an AD, that was probably my like forte. That's probably why I want to get more into it at the NIAAA level to give back. Is I learned all the Swiss Army knives of what Google products do for you, and free apps out there like If This Then That, or just how to utilize things that now there's some companies that do that for you, the Gippers of the world, hometown ticketing. Like I could never replicate any of that, but like streamlining, I made a resource off of a Google site, a coach's handbook. My inbox and my secretaries always were inundated with these random questions. I made this coach's handbook on a Google site that had it all. I digitized every single document our department had, and it was this thing that you could pull up on your phone, you could pull it up on a computer, and it was the first answer out of my mouth the minute someone's like, hey, where's that assistant coach eval? Hey, where's the SOPs for basketball? Hey, where's the, how do I get my coach's card from the Washington State Coaches Association? And all those links were on that. I updated it. It was not a static paper coach's handbook. It was this tech-based, and you could use it whether you were at the end of your coaching career or a rookie green right out of the gates. It was that easy to use, and it was all easy for them to print out and whatnot. And on that same line, you could do that with any of your processes, making them digitized and go out. My second one on that would have been our academic eligibility sheets. I mean, that was a time suck. I mean, it took me, we did that every other week. Yeah, you're shaking your head. I know, like every other week for our honor code, you had to run grades for every kid. And you got inundated. I would take time out of a Thursday morning, and it would be 4 to 5 hours of just going through the names to make sure, like, were they on probation last week? Did that D go away? Did they have an F? Go through that. Well, I ended up making that a streamlined process that could feed out of Power School, which is what our academics were housed in, make it into a Google sheet, and then have that vet out all my information for me using if that, then this statements out of a free app. And then that would generate emails to coaches. I went from 4.5, 5 hours to like an hour and a half of my time back. And it just, and my coaches got what they needed in an email. And so there's a lot of those out there. And I highly, encourage you, no matter what your age is as an AD, to look up those, because you can streamline a lot of things that you have going on, or digitize a lot of your stuff to not be all these papers on your desk, and make it really easy, even for your secretary or assistant, to just shoot it to the coach to answer the question. And then, a fourth one, I'll do a shameless plug. You need medical coverage. You need to have that. So if you're able to do that in-house, that is awesome. But I was an AD that didn't have sideline medical in-house coverage for my students via an athletic trainer. And nowadays they're hard to get, no matter who you are, and they're only going to get harder because they're making their requirements more. It's a master's only level of education. So a lot of undergrad programs can't just certify an AT anymore. But they're valuable resources, whether you can do that in-house or through a company like myself. They help your kids out, they help your community out, and they even will help your school community at large just be, healthy and taken care of.
No, and I'm glad you did that, because again, having athletic trainer coverage is just so vital, and great tools also. The whiteboard thing, I love it. I had a whiteboard. I also had an old school folder. I would tell our coaches, you might have a game on your website, but if it's not in my folder, it doesn't exist. So I know just where you're coming from. Scott, again, this has been very cool. One more time, if a listener wants to reach out and pick your brain just about athletics, or find out more about PT Solutions, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think just AD to AD networking on through this. My personal email would be best. Again, that's my last name, period, my first name, @gmail.com. I'm trying to bring my Twitter back to life out of being an AD. So at Coach Paine, I'm pretty involved on Twitter at this point. So happy to connect with you there. And then you can find me on LinkedIn too. And either way, you can direct message me, DM, for those of you that don't know what direct message is, and then, or hit me up on email, and I'm happy to give you my cell phone from there, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm always happy to help, even if it's not outside of the medical setting here. But a lot of tech tips I'd be happy to help with.
Scott Paine, Certified Master Athletic Administrator and PT Solutions. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, and all the best moving forward.
Pleasure's all mine, Jake. Thank you so much for having me.
For listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back next time for more great best practices on the Educational AD Podcast. And we also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs for their support. Wall of Fame is on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen consoles and an entire library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Come back just about every day for new content. We have 2 interviews each week on Monday and Friday. We have our team building tips on Thursday, Wednesday wisdom on Wednesday, and we're getting ready to start a new feature on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.